another session of Ditalk 2.0. Today we delve into a vital thought-provoking topic, ethics and equity in disaster response. Who gets help first? Our speaker Pavithra will guide us through the ethical dilemmas and real-world challenges involved in disaster response. She will explore how decisions are made about who receives aid first, the role of systemic inequalities, and how we can work toward the more just and inclusive response strategies. Without further ado, let's welcome Pavithra to the stage to take through the crucial and insightful discussion.
Good evening, everyone. Disaster forces society into urgent, high-stakes decision-making. Whether it's flood, earthquake, or pandemic, the resources available to save lives are often limited. This scarcity raises a fundamental question: who should get help first? The answer isn't just technical; it's deeply ethical. The way we respond to disasters reflects our moral values and the kind of society we aspire to be. And the kind of society examine the ethical and equity challenges in disaster responses. We will explore how different from moral frameworks, great decisions, discuss real-world cases like Hurricane Katrina and COVID-19 vaccine distributions, and reflect on how we design systems that respond fairly and effectively. Ultimately, we are not just responding to emergencies, and we are deciding whose lives are prioritized and who needs to get them. Understanding ethics and equity. First, we need to clarify what we mean by ethics and equity. Ethics involves the principles of right and wrong that guide individual and collective behavior in disaster response. This translates to decisions about prioritization, fairness, and moral responsibility. In equity, on the other hand, goes beyond treating everyone the same. It involves recognizing that different people face different levels of risk and disadvantage. A fair system doesn't give everyone equal resources, it gives people what they need to survive and recover. For instance, elderly people with disabilities, or those living in poverty may need more support than others during a crisis. Recognizing these disparities is critical to ethical decision making in emergencies. Ethical frameworks in disaster response. Several ethical theories are commonly used to guide disaster response, each offering a different lens for decision making. Utilitarianism is mainly important in this. It emphasizes maximum overall good saving the most lives, even if that means some individuals are left behind. Then it's deontological. Deontological ethics focus on doing what is morally right based on duties and principles, such as treating everyone equally, regardless of the outcome. In Rawls in Justice is based on the work of philosopher John Rawls, argues for prioritizing those who are more disadvantaged, aiming to reduce social and health inequalities. Finally, it's triage ethics. It's also based on often used in medical emergencies, prioritize individuals' probability and urgency. In practice, these frameworks may conflict. For example, saving the most lives might mean ignoring those who are hardest to save. In disaster responders, often must navigate these conflicting principles under pressure and with incomplete information. Next, the main case study of Hurricane Katrina. In the case study, it tells us in Hurricane Katrina in 2005, it offers a stark example of how ethical consideration and inequalities play out in disaster response. When the storm hits New Orleans, over 1,800 lives were lost, and the most severe impacts were felt by the poor, predominantly black neighborhoods. Many residents lacked transportation to their cities and lived in areas most vulnerable to flooding. Government response was widely criticized for being slow and uncoordinated. Those who were easiest to reach and rescue were typically those with more resources. Then those who are easiest to reach and rescue, typically those with more resources. receive the help faster. From a utilitarian view, helping large groups makes sense, but from a justice perspective. The failure to perspective, the most vulnerable reflected the systematic inequalities. Katrina exposed to how poverty, race, and geography determine who gets help and who doesn't. It also highlighted the importance of incorporating equity into emergency planning and long before disaster strikes. Then we all know the COVID-19 vaccine distribution. The COVID-19 pandemic presented a different kind of disaster in our world that the unfolded globally and over time. When vaccine first became available, demand for exceeded the supply, forcing government to decide who would receive them first. Most countries adopted a tight approach prioritizing the elderly and health workers based on their risk. Some also focused on underserved populations such as indigenous communities, homeless individuals, or people in crowded living conditions. These visions were not just medical, they were moral. At a global level, these factors become even more evident. Wealthy countries secured millions of deaths early, while low-income nations faced long delays. That raised serious ethical questions about vaccine nationalism versus global disparity. Should cellular population come first, or should vaccine be shared based on need or vulnerability? This case illustrated how ethics and equity must shape not only local but disaster response efforts. Then we talk about common dilemmas in disaster response. The disaster response often faces ethical complex dilemmas. One common method is first come and first served. This appears fair but can exclude people who are further away, slower to arrive, or unable to move quickly. Often the most vulnerable another approach saves the most lives, favor efficiency but may marginalize those who need intensive care. Conversely, prioritizing the worst of might align with justice but could result in fewer overall lives saved. And when triage is used, resources often go to the best survival odds, potentially abandoning people with severe injuries. These decisions are rarely black and white. Each choice involves moral trade-offs, and the right answer depends not just commons, but when the value society holds dear, whether it's efficiency, fairness, compassion, and justice. The barrier to ethical and equitable response. Even when ethical principles are well established, there are numerous barriers to putting them into practice during disasters. Information gaps are a major issue. Rescuers may not know where the greatest need is, how to reach the most vulnerable. In this bias can also affect who gets help first. The people may unknowingly favor those who look, speak, or act like themselves. Politically, pressure can be sought to prioritize pushing resources towards areas with more media coverage or political influence. Logistical challenges like impassioned roads, damages, communication systems can delay aid to those in remote or undeserved regions. These barriers highlighted the need of ethical planning that anticipates inequality and embeds fairness into levels of emergency response. The building a fair system. To build a more ethical and equitable disaster response system, change must happen in multiple levels. First, vulnerable groups must be identified and supported in advance through inclusive planning and risk assessment. If community engagement is main key, disaster plans should involve local leaders and reflect cultural, linguistic, and economic realities. Training responders to recognize bias and use ethical decision-making framework is equally important. Funding and resources should be distributed with equity in lens, ensuring high-risk communities have the tools they need before the disaster strikes. Lastly, the transcriptive matters criteria for triage or resources allocation should be clear, publicly communicated, and consistent. Ethics must not be reactive but embedded into every step of disaster response and disaster preparedness and response. In conclusion, disaster response is more than logistics. It is a test of our moral priorities. The question of who gets help first and not just practical realities but also our deepest values about fairness, dignity and human life. Ethical framework is such a utilitarianism, deontology and justice theory, each of valuable perspectives. But one can function in isolation. We must strive for a balance between saving the most lives and protecting the most at risk. Disasters may be unpredictable, but our response to them should not be by embedding equity into our plans, addressing systematic inequalities, and committing to transparency and inclusion. We can ensure that disaster response is not only efficient but just. In the end, building ethical disaster systems is more than saving lives. It's about affirming that every life matters, especially in the moments when it is the most threatened. Thank you.
If anyone has any question, please free to ask. We welcome your inquiries on ethical consideration, prioritization strategies or systemic impacts involved in disaster response and humanitarian aid.
What is the difference between equality and equity in disaster response?
Inequality is giving importance to everyone, but equity is giving resources to everyone, but it's based on speciality or specific objectives. And also disaster based, we help deserving and elderly people because of they are facing so many challenges in that time. So we take them firstly.
Why is service important?
I think the presentation is nice. I just want to add a comment. As Pavithra rightly pointed out in the study about the Hurricane Katrina. So once I had mentioned it with the same Peter, I was able to visit those places in 2020.
Okay, sir.
At that time, I found the victims of Katrina were trying to survive, or they were living in relief camps even after 15 years of the hurricane. So, actually, usually I pointed out this, I showcased this, that even in America, it takes so long time for responding properly or working effectively in disaster situation. For this purpose, I can actually showcase this incident. But beneath that, I found all these people who were living in relief camps were blacks. Those people were from the African origin. So that is a bad mark on America, or that was a bad mark on America on the cyclone disaster response. That people who were living in those places where this hurricane hit were not properly served their rights because they were black. So, as you said, it is there many places. Of course, being the professionals, we should try to eliminate such thoughts when we work in the field of disasters. But for my personal you also need access. That's all, just for your information.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the information.
Go ahead with the other questions.
Why is ethics important in disaster response?
It's when the resources are limited, the ethical decision making based on the fairness and moral principles. And so it's also based on the human dignity and the prioritizing who needs it's mostly wanted. That's why the ethics is important in disaster response. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Pavithra, for this compelling presentation on ethics and equity in disaster management. Who gets help first? Your discussion shed light on complex and often overlooked dimensions of emergency management, reminding us that fairness and humanity must guide our action in times of crisis. With Ditalk 2.0, we continue to explore critical topics that shape modern technological, ethical, and social discourse. Wishing everyone a great evening and see you in the next section.